This is step number 1, plan. I'm going to be going over the help guides that we've uploaded onto the website and also the Facebook group. We've put help guides for all the steps, all steps 1 through 5. Plus we have help guides for every boat between 2 valves and 6 valves with also a 2 to 6 valve diagram file. And these are basically all the boats and how to measure the different measurements that you write in for those boats. And then those also are the individual ones are on the step 2 measurement help guides for each boat between 2 valves and 6. So it's each one's at the back of your guide no matter what. Now these steps, like we said, they're individual discrete steps going from figuring out that yes, I want to install this into my boat to number 5 is basically putting it in and being done. So the first one, step 1, plan, is one of the most important steps, and this is the reason why, is because everything you do from the plan stage, once you measure and order, you've locked it in to whatever you decided at the planning stage. So like I said, it's a very important one. We're going to go over it really slow. There's each step only takes you about 10 minutes, but we always tell you to plan for at least an hour or so. Think about it several times. Not necessarily what you want to do now, you might want to change it later. So you want to think about what you're going to do later. If you're going to change it on the front, you definitely want to measure, think about it, plan, measure, think about it, and then once you figure it all out, that's when you take your final dimensions, your final measurements, and that's when you move to step number 2. But until you figure it all out, you just stay right on the planning stage, whether it's 10 minutes, 1 minute, or 2 days, because you don't want to move to the next one until you definitely know what you want to do. So I'm going to take just a few minutes to go over each one. We're going to go slow through it, and it's not a really hard one, but the first thing you do in the plan, number 1 step, is you're going to measure the diameter of your tubes at the largest size. That's normally right at the transom or rear of the boat. And what you're going to do is, like in the picture, you'll put a framing square, carpenter square on it, pull it over, and then you can get another straight edge on the other side, give it an eyeball to be square and straight, and then that will give you an easy diameter measurement of your tube at the largest dimension. Now if you don't have a square, there's another way that you can do it. You can take obviously you could take a tape measure, a cloth tape measure, and go around and measure it. But if you don't have one of those, you can also take a piece of cord, a piece of rope, go around something that doesn't stretch easily, go around the boat, around the tube at that largest spot. Then what you do is you measure the rope and you divide it by 3.14, and that gives you the diameter from the circumference. 3.14 is pi, obviously, and that's how you figure out the diameter from the circumference. Easy peasy. Now, once you do that, from our other previous video, you remember that we have actually 2 sets of InFlataSaver kits. One for smaller boats, normally from 15-inch diameter to 19-inch diameter. Now that's going to fit a boat normally from 10 feet long all the way up to around 16 or 17 foot rib. Normally when you're in the 16-foot range, normally they're just about always ribs. You might have a few that aren't, but anyway, that size is going to fit up to about a 15 or 16 foot rib. Now once you get above 16 to 20 feet and above 20, that's where you're going to need the bigger diameter up to 22 inch, from 19 to 22 inch. Now This larger size at first will be a custom order basis, because not many, I would assume maybe less than 10% of all the ones I sell will be to the larger boats, the inflatables, and that's not a big deal. It'll just take me a while, to maybe a week, to get a few orders, and then once I get a few orders, or it's been a week and I don't have other orders, I'll just go ahead and make the large ones for your boat and get those out to you. Now, let's move on to the second part of plan, and that is the number of valves. That's where you'll actually count the number of valves, and then you'll mark the inner baffles where you see the seam on the port side. Normally measure from the port side, and just about every inflatable, especially smaller ones, they're either going to be symmetrical, or if it's like a 3 valve, the other 2 will be symmetrical, and then you'll have the 1 valve on one side for the front, the bow. Now, let's talk about the 3 and 5 valve boats, because those are a little bit special, and we'll go over that in step number 2 when you're measuring for those. But at the bottom of page 1 on the plan help guide, you'll see a note in bold that says for 3 and 5 valve boats with a larger wraparound tube than 8 feet. So if you measure from the baffle around to the other side and it's more than 8 feet, or if it's a pointy, what we call a pointy V-hole, meaning that it comes to a great point, we always recommend, if it's either of those cases, or both, we always recommend splitting that forward section, that forward separate chamber, into 2 InFlataSaver kits. And now you not only have extra protection on the bow, and in case something does happen, your whole bow doesn't deflate, only one side. Then if that did happen, you could always pump up the other side, and that would give you some extra around the other side in the bow to get you home, and if you have a boat that big, you'll be carrying a HDR, and then boom, you put that in, and now you're ready to go, just like before. So we'll go over the 3 and 5 valve boats further in the measurements, and then what you're going to do on the next part, the part 3 of step number 1, is you're going to decide if any of the pre-installed valve locations, if you have a clearance issue. And one of the easiest ways to figure that out, and you can do that even when you're planning, because everybody's got like a dinner plate. It's just basically an 8 or 9 inch paper plate, 8.5, 9 inch. This is the lock ring. If you put it on there, that shows you that you have an inch or so all the way around, that you can put this plate anywhere on your boat, and you can decide, okay, yes, I have a problem. No, I have no problem at all, just by putting the plate on it. Now, if you need to, you can always cut a little hole in the center, hold that over, and then you can see it on your valve, make sure you have no problems. And once you know that, okay, I have no problems and no clearance issues, then you can move on to step number 2, which is measure. Now, if you do have clearance issues, what you're gonna want to do at this point is you're gonna want to plan, okay, where do I want to put the new InFlataSaver valve if I have to move it? Alright? And what you'll do by that is, like we said in our planning video, and we show you, you'll take your dinner plate, and you'll go around the hall, and you'll decide, okay, it can be here, it's not in the way of people, it can be easily gotten to and pumped up, it's an easy place to put it. And even better is if you can reach in the back behind the hole and take out the old valve. What we recommend to do is when you move, if you have to move a valve, 9 out of 10 chances you're going to move it into a place that's going to be a perfect spot with one layer of material. when you cut that piece of material out, we recommend that you take if you can, you reach behind, undo it, and if you can't, you can get the tool and undo your old valve, and then you take the old piece that you cut out for that location and you glue onto the old valve location. After you take it out, you glue the piece on with 5200. Now you have a perfect match. You use 1 hour 5200, you glue it on really quick, you make it really pretty by wiping it with mineral spirits is what you use to clean up 5200. It cleans it up perfectly, and then in 1 hour you have a protection over the old hole, and now that'll protect your InFlataSaver inner tube no matter what. You don't have to worry about air holding. It's just to be pretty and to protect the InFlataSaver inner tube while you're using the boat and it's not exposed. You can leave the valve in if it's easy enough. We recommend to take it out. You can, like I said, you can leave it in. Most valves don't have sharp edges on the back. It's a clean, nice, cage almost. That's the nut that locks it on. And also, if you can reach behind it and grab the nut, you don't need the wrench on the front. You can just undo it on the back. I've done it on 3 or so that we've gone into, and it's not a problem. So a lot of times you can get by without the wrench, and especially if you can reach in there and grab it and you have a problem. I'm pretty strong with my hands. If you're not, you can always reach in there with a pair of channel locks afterwards, because you have a hole, a 4-inch hole in the boat, and then you can get the valve out that way. So basically, we are done with step 1. You measure the diameter, decide which size you need, 15 to 19, 19 to 22. Then you decide and count the number of valves and mark the inner baffles where they are, so that when you go to measure, that's where you're going to measure to, and those are pre-marked and you're ready to go. And then the main important thing is if you have a 3 or a 5 valve boat, you measure from the baffle to baffle in the bow, and like we said, if it's over 8 feet or if it's a pointy V hole, you're going to want to split those into 2 separate InFlataSaver kits, one on each side, port and starboard, and normally that will be the exact same size because you move the valve to the exact spot on the other side, and now either size will fit either side in the bow, just like in the aft sections on a boat like that. So now we're going to move along to step number 2. Like I said, they're all pretty simple. This one has a lot of paperwork assigned to it because there's a separate file for each separate boat, whether it's a 2 valve, 3 valve, 4 valve, 5 valve, or 6 valve. And then, like I said, you have the picture diagram files that go along with that, and those are what help you to measure and convert when you want to order on the following step, number 3. So that was step number 1. Like I said, plan is the most important one, because what you're doing is everything from now on goes from plan. So spend a few extra minutes, hours, days, whatever it takes, depending on, the more complex your boat, obviously, the more you're going to sit and want to figure it out. If it's a 2 valve boat, you got one on each side, and you can put the dinner plate on it, and you have inches all the way around, no problem. You've just done the planning stage in 8 seconds. So like I said, it's very important, so plan accordingly. All right, thank you.